So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're joining us from. Welcome to the Preparing for Graduate School webinar for all incoming graduate studies at Mcmaster University for the fall 2022 term. My name is Yufei. I am the International Graduate Student Coordinator, and I work at the School of Graduate Studies at Mcmaster University. In this session, we hope that we can share information with you about preparing to start in your graduate student journey and hopefully answer some of the questions you may have. Please feel free to direct all of your questions in the Q&A function on Zoom. Staff from Graduate Studies and International Student Services will be in the background answering your questions. And if you have a similar question as another student, please feel free to give it a thumbs up or give it a vote. And this will help us prioritize the questions being answered. You can also view the questions that has already been answered under the Answered tab on the Q&A function. So if you have a similar question and looking for an answer for that question, please feel free to check that tab to view the answer that may have already been provided. And finally, at the end of the session, I will attend to any questions that are still left in the question and answer box. Before we get into the presentation portion of today's event, I would like to acknowledge the land that we, at least the ones who are in Canada, are sitting on. So Mcmaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon, One Pond Agreement. This is really interesting, especially for this event, because I know that even through the survey and through just knowing the timeline of starting school, many of you in this room, and actually most of you in this room, are not at Mcmaster yet. And in a few weeks or in a few months, we will all be united on this land. You may not have access to this information, but we have about 50 students in this room right now, and we've had almost 200 students attending the earlier event. And it's really amazing to know that we're all joined together at the same time today from different locations and you may be facing, a very different weather, a very different sun or the moon outside, but we're all going to be united on this land, hopefully very soon. And when you do come to Canada and visit Canada, I highly encourage you to learn about and look into the Indigenous history, the Indigenous culture, and the Indigenous present that we currently have in Canada, and to respect the land that brought us all together. So again, the purpose of today's event is to hopefully prepare for your arrival in Canada and prepare for your academic program. So today we will talk about what happens after you accept your offer, the orientation events that are available for graduate students and for international graduate students, and services specifically for international students, as well as things you might want to be mindful of before you're traveling to Mcmaster. So first, we'll start with what happens after you accept your offer. So the picture on the slide that you're seeing right now is a picture of Gilmore Hall, and the School of Graduate Studies office is located on the second floor of this building. Now, as international graduate students, you've probably already heard about this before, but I really want to highlight that if you haven't done so already, please apply for your study permit as soon as possible. Ideally, you would apply for your study permit as soon as you decide to accept your offer. So in order to apply for study permits, you need your offer letter and other documents that are required by the Government of Canada. And we have step-by-step guides available on our immigration advising page. If you already have a study permit, so for example, if you have completed your undergraduate studies in Canada, then you may extend your current study permit instead of applying for one. We have professionals in the immigration area within McMaster University to help you with any of your immigration questions and study permit questions. So if you ever have any questions or any doubts about what you should do about your immigration status, that could be, whether to apply for a new study permit or extend your current study permit, please reach out to our immigration advisors at immigration@mcmaster.ca. In addition to the immigration process, there are a few administrative processes that you are encouraged to complete at McMaster after you decide to accept your offer. So there are very detailed step-by-step instructions and links to detailed further instructions available on our orientation hub. And I highly encourage you to bookmark our orientation hub so you can go visit it anytime you're unsure about what your next step could be or unsure about upcoming orientation events that are available to you. My colleague Judy will be sharing all the links that that are present on these slides in the chat, and these slides will also be available to you after today's session. But please note that the Orientation Hub really is one of the best resources you can gather to help you to have a smooth start of your program. So of course, some of the steps you need to complete is, if you haven't already done so, is respond to your offer on your application portal. And if your program requires deposit fees to accept your offer, then please complete the process as instructed by the program. Make sure that you upload your student card photo before July 16th. So the last date to upload your photo on time is July 15th. This will allow us to prepare for your arrival so you're able to pick up your student card as soon as more information is available. And instructions to pick up your student card will become available in the upcoming weeks on the Orientation Hub. Enrollment is currently open for many of the students. So if enrollment is open to you, please make sure that you enroll on time before August 2nd to avoid any late fees. And also, please make sure to note September 25th as this tuition deadline for the fall semester. And please make sure to pay your tuition on time to avoid late fees and interests. As international students, there are a few things you may want to take a note of about your ability to work in Canada. In general, to work in Canada, you must have a valid social insurance number and a valid Canadian bank account. Both of these things you can obtain after you arrive in Canada. So for example, to complete the process to get a social insurance number and a bank account, they will often ask for your address in Canada and confirmation of your status in Canada, both of which you can only obtain after you arrive. And of course, your study permit would normally outline the condition for you to work in Canada. So after you arrive at the border and receive your study permit, make sure that this condition is written on your study permit so you will be allowed to work in Canada under the conditions outlined on your study permit. There is an additional requirement for all graduate students, so not just international students, but all graduate level students at McMaster, that they may only work up to an average of 20 hours per week on campus. So especially if you have teaching assistant, TA work hours already, please make sure that if you wish to partake in any other employment on campus, that you do not exceed this total work hour allowance. And of course, as graduate students, you may be receiving payments in one of the two or both ways. If you're employed as a teaching assistant or if you're receiving research scholarship, the payment will be deposited directly into your Canadian bank account after you enroll in direct deposits. So after you arrive in Canada or in preparation for your arrival, you may receive paperwork from our Human Resources Department asking for your bank information. Please make sure to complete that information so you get paid, your payment for your TA employment. And of course, as graduate students, you may be receiving other funding scholarships or awards. And these payments are often made through Interact e-transfer. So what this means is you will receive an email with the with the payment, which you can then deposit to your bank account. And so in this case, please do make sure that your email information is updated and you know where to look for these kind of payments when you're expecting them. If you have a disability and would like to set up academic accommodations, I highly encourage you to contact Student Accessibility Services as soon as possible and before classes start or before your TA employment begins. By visiting the information about graduate disability accommodations page, you will be able to see what kind of accommodations are typically available in the university and for graduate students. Links to make an appointment with Student Accessibility Services to set up accommodations for classes or for your academic work, as well as link to set up accommodations for your teaching assistant or TA or RA employment, because the process for the two could be a bit different. And of course, in this day and time, the pandemic is still very much present in Canada, and the university may have health and safety measures in response to the current situation. I highly recommend for you to visit the Back to Mac page for the most up-to-date information about the university's pandemic measures. So it depends on the situation that are in our community and in the country, things may shift unexpectedly or without notice. So I always recommend students to check this page directly for the most up-to-date and the most relevant news for Mcmaster students. And of course, they also have a section about frequently asked questions about access in campus and health and safety requirements and protocols. And of course, before you start school, there are many questions that you may have for all kind of aspect of your graduate journey. And hopefully this slide will help you understand and direct you to the right folks who may be able to answer them. So any questions about your program, your courses and program requirements or TA assignments should be directed to your program directly. So hopefully at this time, your program has already reached out to you and identified their preferred contact information, or you even got a chance to meet your program's graduate administrator. So if you have any questions about the academic requirement of your program or enrollment into your program, please direct these questions directly to your program's graduate administrator. And of course, the School of Graduate Studies is always here to support you. We have a very efficient live chat, but if you would like to ask a question after our live chat hours, you're also welcome to email askgrad@mcmaster.ca. And the questions that you may ask of us may be general questions about grad studies, or resolving technical issues if you're facing issues with your photo upload, enrolling in SGS 101 or 201, or if you need a form signed by the School of Graduate Studies, or if you're just unsure who should sign your forms. And if your question is not relevant to graduate studies or your program, please feel free to send me an email with your question, and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my abilities or direct you to the correct department or correct person who may provide you with the best guidance. Now, the School of Graduate Studies has prepared a lot of resources for our new and incoming graduate students. I will invite my colleague, Catherine, to talk about them.
Thanks so much, Yufei. And good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We're glad that you're here. I am Catherine Mabry, and I am the coordinator of postdoctoral affairs and research training in the School of Graduate Studies. Most of the things that I do are for postdocs, but I do connect with graduate students around specific programs. So things like the Grad Student Awards, GradFlix, and our upcoming resource fair in the fall, amongst other things. Yufei, if I could get the next slide, please. So Yufei had already mentioned the new Graduate Student Orientation Hub, and I just want to reinforce how really important this space is for you. So on the new Graduate Student Orientation Hub, you can access step-by-step instructions and resources, like online activities and events. So up at the top, it has all the information that you need about how to get started, enrolling, your ID form. But if you keep scrolling down, it has information on arriving in Hamilton, building a strong relationship with your supervisor, accessing information about students with disabilities, and it keeps on going. So please have a look through. If you have any questions, make this your first place to check and see if that information is already available to you. Next slide, please. One of the other things that we also have on our website is a tremendous events calendar. And there are a number of orientation events that are already slotted in for summer. So we encourage you to go ahead and take a look at these. Upcoming events will include the International Graduate Students Q&A, which is your opportunity to ask current international grad students about their experiences and tips for new students. This is information that you need from the perspective of your peers. And so they will tell you what's really important from their experiences. So you'll get really great information from them. There's also resources for graduate students about meeting the staff from the School of Graduate Studies, learning about services and resources available for all graduate students, and Life in Canada webinars about living in Hamilton, health insurance, and the healthcare team. These events are currently on the schedule. Tomorrow, we have study permit extension. We have sessions on Ask an Immigration Advisor, lots of different pieces that are available and on our website. So please do keep an eye on that and register for those pieces that are best suited for you. Next slide, please. We also have upcoming events happening for the fall, and the first of these up at the top is our resource fair. The Graduate Studies Resource Fair will be held on September the 7th, and we're aiming to do it in person for the first time in a few years. So this will be a chance for you to learn about services and resources available to graduate students on campus from our campus partners. But there are also other orientation events, chances for you to get settled in the fall. International Graduate Student Games Night. Yufei is always energized after these. I just hear that they're absolutely fantastic. Opportunities for you to socialize with other international graduate students and to connect in with the International Graduate Student Association, or the IGSA. This is a tremendous group to connect with. They're really engaged, and they're really a fantastic group of students. Even though it changes year over year, I am always amazed at just how fantastic these students are, and how they are getting so many great things done for the international graduate student community. So do connect in with them. There's also Mcpherson Institute. So if you have a TA-ship and you need to do training, Mcpherson Institute oftentimes will be involved in providing a lot of different pieces related to training. And they provide additional professional development. You can find a link to the Mcpherson Institute from our orientation hub. It is the home of all things, so please do go ahead and go there. Events and activities that are organized by the GSA, Graduate Students Association. They do have some welcome events that they will be planning for the fall. Getting to know student clubs and communities, that will be an important one for being able to connect in with the folks in your area. And they're also going to be offering an in-person campus tour led by an existing graduate student. So that should be a fantastic opportunity to really get a chance to explore campus and meet some other great people while you're learning your way around. Next slide, please, Yufei. And finally, I would encourage you to be paying attention to the email updates that you are getting. So you're getting them regularly throughout the summer, and this will continue in the fall. We continue to communicate with all of our students about important updates and things that you need to know, as well as opportunities, programs, and events that you want to know about. So don't just say, yes, there's an email from Grad Studies, but go ahead and open that and read it, because there's really important information that you'll want to take advantage of to get the most out of your experience at McMaster. With that, I say thank you, welcome, and Yufei, back to you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So in the next section, we will highlight some services for international students, and I will invite my colleague, Andrew.
Great. Thanks very much, Yufei. So hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Staples, and I am the Student Success Coach. I work in International Student Services. And this afternoon, or maybe this evening for you, I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of those services are available specifically for international students, both at the community as well as outside of the Mcmaster community. So first wanted to talk a little bit about our area, so International Student Services, or ISS. We're available to you as an international student, and we're really here to support you throughout your time at McMaster. So that can be now, before you arrive, throughout your time here, and even for some of you beyond, especially for those of you who might be thinking of maybe applying for a postgraduate work permit afterwards, or even applying for your permanent residency. And so, as mentioned earlier, we do have immigration advising available as part of our services. And so they can help you really with any immigration related questions, whether that's for yourself, or maybe you have family members coming to visit, or even a spouse or family that might be joining you while you are here. So this service is free. You don't need to pay anything. And so you can connect with Carissa or Legipe to get that support. You can connect with any of us through a platform which is called Oscar Plus. Oscar Plus is a sort of a booking system that we use, and you would use your McMaster Mac ID and your password to log in, and you can navigate to find us under the Student Success Center and book an appointment with any of us based on the question that you may have. So in addition to immigration support, we also administer your health insurance, which I'm going to talk about shortly. And we also offer success coaching, which is if you've got any questions, concerns throughout your time at McMaster, maybe you're not sure who to go to, maybe something has happened outside of campus and you're not sure how to navigate it, you can connect with me as your student success coach, and we can explore your options. And we also have lots of different events, workshops, and socials. So some of our events are really fun in nature. On Friday, we're taking about 150 students to Canada's Wonderland, which is a big theme park about 2 hours away from campus. But we also have some things that are maybe less fun and more related to maybe your studies or your immigration status. We have workshops about how to apply for jobs and those kind of things. And so all of that is available through Oscar Plus. And as international students, we encourage you to come out and join us for those. For your health insurance, this is something which is referred to as UHIP, or your University Health Insurance Plan. And this is something that is mandatory for you. So I'm going to talk very briefly about it, but we do have a webinar dedicated all about UHIP, as well as the Canadian healthcare system, which is happening in a couple of weeks on July 28th. But for now, what you need to know is that your UHIP coverage will begin on the August 10th for those of you who are starting in September. And so that means when you arrive, as long as you arrive between August 10th and beyond, you would be covered under this plan. It is mandatory, and it is something that you're automatically enrolled into. So you don't have to apply for this. It is really important that you also, if you're traveling with any dependents, so a spouse and or children, you need to enroll them as well. And so there is a window of time when you are eligible to enroll them. And so as soon as you arrive, you would email uhip@mcmaster.ca, and they would be able to walk you through the steps to add your dependents. So UHIP covers you for things like doctor's visits, emergencies, blood tests, those kind of procedures. But you also have supplementary coverage. And so depending on your situation, it might be one of the three options. So it could be under the GSA or the Graduate Student Association Health and Dental Plan. So this would be available to all graduate students with the exception of MBA students. MBA students are covered under the MSU Health and Dental Plan. And then for those of you who are teaching assistants or research assistants, you would be covered under QP benefits. And so these health plans cover things like visiting a dentist, which wouldn't be covered under UHIP, prescription medication, massage, those kind of things that aren't covered under the UHIP plan. But again, if you're interested in this, you will find out more on our July 28th webinar, so hope to see you there. And next, I wanted to talk to you about a really great resource on campus, which is called Model, which is the McMaster Office for the Development of English Language Learners. And this is a free service. It's available to anybody who is learning English or looking to improve your English. And they offer lessons, workshops, and sort of support groups, as well as one-on-one help to help you develop your English language skills. So that could be writing, listening, reading, comprehension. And some of their, I believe they're called conversation hangouts, are really just the opportunity to practice English. They've got different workshops about Canadian culture, Canadian slang, norms. So I really do encourage you to go to their website and see what workshops they have coming up. There are going to be some what we call mini workshops that will be offered for you through the School of Graduate Studies in August, to kind of give you a sense of what kind of activities they provide. A lot of these workshops are also very social in nature, so it's a really good opportunity for you to connect with people outside of your program. And then lastly, I wanted to talk to you about some other ways, to kind of get involved in the campus community. Obviously, you are here to be a student. That's the whole purpose of your sort of adventure and your time here at McMaster. But we do recognize, there are other things that you can do other than just focus on your academics. And one great resource is the Graduate Student Association, or GSA. So this is a student association that you as grad students would be a part of. And they oversee lots of different clubs that are available. These clubs are student-led, led by other grad students, and they might be specific to your program, might be about special interests or even culture related. So I really suggest that you check those out. In addition, there's the IGSA, or the International Graduate Student Association, which again, this is a student-led organization by international grad students for international grad students. And they can help you with your transition if you're running into any difficulties. They also are a great body to help advocate for international graduate students. And then lastly, outside of campus, the city of Hamilton is going to be your home. So we know you've all chosen McMaster, but part of that is also choosing to live in Hamilton. And Hamilton's a great city. I'm born and raised here, and they've got a really great website that has a lot of information for newcomers to Hamilton. Things to check out, things to get settled. And of course, through School of Grad Studies as well as through ISS, there are lots of other opportunities to do things and learn more about your new home. So that's all for me, and thanks everybody again for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew. And everyone, you will see more of Andrew by attending more events that are hosted by International Student Services. So for the last portion of this presentation, I would like to talk a little bit more about traveling to McMaster, including some of the tips for you when you're preparing for your arrival, and also what happens when you travel to Canada at this time. First of all, to prepare for your arrival, it will be helpful for you to determine when you would like to arrive in Canada. Usually that we found that students usually arrive in Canada in Hamilton about 3 to 4 weeks before the start of our program, especially if this is their first time in Canada. This will allow them to have some time to, get settled in Hamilton, to familiarize themselves with the community and with the school in general. So usually we find that students arrive in August. If you're looking for absolutely last day to arrive before your program starts, I recommend reaching out to your program directly for their advice, because at the graduate level, program start dates may be different. Program requirements for attending events and being present for events and training may be different as well. So please reach out to your program if you're wondering if they have any advice about your arrival time. Before you get on the plane, please make sure that you have these documents with you and available. So if you're familiar with international travels, of course, you will need a passport or a travel document that are relevant to your personal situation. From Mcmaster University, please make sure that you have your offer letter with you to prove of your student status with the university starting in September. And of course, when you get approval for your study permit, you will receive a letter of introduction or a POE letter indicating that your study permit is approved. This is a very important piece of document because the border agent will look at this letter and scan the barcode on this letter to issue you your study permit. And of course, if you have traveled to Canada before with your study permit approval, you will likely have a study permit too. So if you already have a study permit, please make sure to bring that with you when you're traveling. And often one of the common requirements is for you to bring a proof of your financial status, that you have enough funds to support yourself during your stay in Canada, and also a valid electronic travel authorization called the ETA, or temporary resident visa called the TRV. If you have been approved for your first Canadian study permit, you will be granted an ETA or a TRV automatically, so you do not have to apply for these documents separately. And of course, if you receive communications from the IRCC or the government offices asking you to bring certain documents, please make sure that you bring these documents with you. If you are ever in doubt about the documents you have or the documents you need, please reach out to our immigration advisors at immigration@mcmaster.ca for their advice. Now, after you purchase your plane ticket and it's approaching your travel time, these are some of the things that students has told us were very helpful to bring with them. So some of the common items may be a power adapter if you're bringing electronics from your home country, and personal medication and doctor's prescriptions that can cover you for at least a month, just in case you need to navigate the healthcare system in Canada. And of course, something to remind you of home, something that brings you comfort, including non-perishable snacks. And last but not least, copies of your official documents and emergency contacts, just in case you lose your documents or you misplace your documents when you're in Canada, because it's always easier to replace a document that you have copies of rather than going to the police station or going to authority trying to prove your identity with nothing to show for it. And some of the things that you may consider that can help you determine what to bring are, comparing the prices of some of the common items from your home country and some of the items in Canada to determine if you should bring it or buy it in Canada. So for example, there are some international brands that are available in many parts of the world, like Nike, like Uniqlo, and you might want to look into, the prices of these items in Canada and in your home country, because sometimes you may find the prices may be cheaper comparably in Canada or cheaper in your home country. And that's when you can make a decision to decide whether you should bring it from your home country or buy it in Canada. And also, especially when you're buying clothes, especially for buying clothes in the winter, if the climate in your home country is not very similar, it's very different from the climate in Canada, they may not even sell the clothes that are appropriate for Canada. So if you're living in a place where where it really doesn't snow, or the temperature really doesn't get too low, you might want to consider waiting to get into Canada before buying a coat, because the country that you're traveling from may not even make the appropriate clothes that may be suitable for Canada. And of course, Canada and Hamilton, and in general, the whole country is known for its winters. But I also want to highlight that if you're starting your program in September, you are likely to arrive in August or early September. And the temperature during these months are actually quite high and can go up to 30 degrees Celsius. So don't worry about having a coat with you when you land in Canada. Usually during August and beginning of semesters, students are still, or everyone they're still in short sleeve shirts and in their summer clothing. So hopefully this can bring you some sort of comfort, knowing that it won't be freezing, hopefully, when you land, and you have more than enough time to prepare yourself for winters in Canada. And of course, winter do come eventually, and the temperature usually can dip below 10 degrees Celsius and possibly below 20 degrees Celsius on some days, and it might even be even colder with the wind chill. Again, if you don't already have a winter jacket that's appropriate for these kind of weather, and you're arriving from a place that don't see these kind of weather at all, please consider getting your winter gear in Canada after you arrive, because the gear that you get in Canada may be the most appropriate for the Canadian weather. And just another slide, because this is one of the common questions we get from students when they're preparing for their arrival. So on the slide, you will see a picture of two real students on campus during the winter. And their outfit really does look like what students typically wear, although not necessarily in a specific color, because the two students just happen to wear the same color. You will see that they're covered from head to toe with a very warm winter jackets, and they're wearing likely waterproof or water resistant boots, because snow, when it gets to the ground and then when it gets warmer, it does melt, and it really could be really messy if your shoes are not waterproof. And their heads are covered with some kind of warm headwear, and they're wearing a scarf that covers their neck, and gloves and mittens that covers their hands. And one thing I want to highlight is that although it looks like they're really bundled up, they're wearing a lot of clothes, preparing for the cold weather, they may not be wearing as much on the inside. That you might want to consider wearing, a light sweater or something lighter, because the temperature difference between indoors and outdoors in the winter could be very drastic. So it could get really warm indoors, and you don't want to overdress for the inside, because it could get extremely warm, especially if you're staying inside for a very long time. And to talk and learn more about living in Hamilton and living in Canada in general, I like to re-highlight these two events that are coming up. So the first one, as Catherine mentioned, is the International Grad Q&A, where current international graduate students are invited to come in and talk to incoming graduate students and answer any questions that they may have about studying at Mcmaster and living in Canada. And of course, we have another Living in Hamilton webinar coming up. And in this webinar, you will learn more about Canadian culture, getting a cell phone plan, opening a bank account, taking local transportation, and more about experiencing Canadian winters. So I highly encourage you to attend these events if you're available and are interested to learn more about your life in Hamilton. And another way to connect and learn more about life in Hamilton and starting graduate school is through the International Grad Navigators program, where if you sign up for this program, you'll be matched with a current graduate student, a current international graduate student from a similar cultural background or who speaks a language that you may also speak, and for one-on-one advice and one-on-one support. I highly recommend signing up for this program, just so this your navigator could be the first person, the first student that you know in Canada, maybe the first friend that you make at Mcmaster. And those are the students who has been there, done that, they have started their graduate journey maybe a few years or maybe a few months before you did, and then they're more than happy to share their advice and support. Next, I will talk a bit more about the arrival process. So closer to your travel time and before you get on the plane. And I'm really glad to share that this arrival process is only one slide. If you attended this session this time last year or the year before, I've had 5 slides because of all the pandemic measures and all the unknowns. Although this arrival process still may change and may not be the same when you travel to Canada, but this is what it is currently, and we will make sure to keep you up to date with any changes that may affect your travel on the International Grad Student Traveling to Mcmaster page. So that page will also be a really good page for you to add to your bookmark until you arrive in Hamilton. So of course, the first step of traveling is to determine your travel date and gather the required documents. And if you're really unsure about exactly when you're required to arrive to Canada by, please contact your program directly. Make sure that you also check the government website for the most up-to-date travel requirements. So at this time, at this moment, the government of Canada require all foreign nationals over the age of 18 to be fully vaccinated to enter Canada. And I encourage you to visit the government website to see which vaccines are accepted in Canada for travel purposes. And please note that you will be required to complete the second dose or the final dose of the vaccine that are accepted at least 14 days before you board the flight. So if you don't have a completed set of vaccines yet, please make sure to get it at least 14 days before you plan to travel to Canada. Currently, this is all the requirements in terms of pandemic. The government of Canada does not require you to take a COVID-19 test before you board. And at this moment, there is a temporary measure at the Mcpherson Airport where it has where they will not test arriving passengers. However, things may change as the situation develops and as things change in the community in the world. So please make sure to check our travel page before you arrive, and we will do our best to include everything that's relevant to international graduate student travels on that page. And 72 hours before your arrival, please make sure to download and complete the information requested on the Arrive Can app. We recommend for you to do this before you board the plane, because this is something that is required for all passengers, regardless of your status. And the border agent will request to see the receipt of your Arrive Can completion before they will allow you to enter the country. And of course, again, travel measures, travel requirements can change. Please make sure to follow the instructions at the airport after you arrive. Typically, students coming to Mcmaster, coming to Hamilton, will likely arrive and cross the border at the Toronto Pearson Airport, and they're very experienced in receiving foreign passengers 24/7, and they're also will be the knowledge area to let you know what happens after you arrive and put up the necessary instructions if the measures do change. After you have arrived in Canada, there are a few things that you can do. So one of the things is to, as mentioned earlier, applying for your social insurance number. I'm aware that the International Student Services team, they are preparing to invite the folks from Service Canada, so you may be able to complete this step on campus. But if they're not available at the time that you need to get your social insurance number, you can also apply for your social insurance number online or at a Service Canada location. Make sure to update your address on Mosaic so you're receiving mail from Mcmaster when needed. And of course, visit a bank to get a Canadian bank account. If you're not an MBA student, you can, the Graduate Student Association will be facilitating bus passes or Presto card that you will use to get on the public transit system in Hamilton. And you can learn more about the public transit system in Hamilton in our Living in Hamilton webinar that's coming up in August. And also, we also have a recorded version of an earlier version of that webinar in our webinar library. If you would like to drive in Ontario, please visit the Ontario the Ontario page for information about getting your driver's license. And if you prefer to not carry your passport around, but still enter places where your IDs are required, you may consider getting an Ontario photo card. And last but not least, and something that I highly recommend, is to give yourself some time to take a walk on campus and visit our surrounding hiking trails. The website Nature at Mac is really helpful for you to explore and identify the hiking trails that you may go on around campus. And I highly encourage you to explore this aspect of the university. So just a quick reminder that there are some things that you can do after today's session, including signing up for more graduate orientation events and staying tuned with our communications about the announcement of even more events. Sign up for the International Grad Navigators programs, and also as well review recorded webinars that have taken place or that has taken place in the past year for information that may be relevant to you. So this concludes the presentation portion of today's event. If you don't have any more questions, or if you're just looking forward to getting more connected and joining more events, thank you for coming. You're free to go on with the rest of your day or the rest of your evening. We are really looking forward to having you joining us at Mcmaster, and I hope that we get to meet each other in September at the resource fair.